My name's Fletch, and this is Hurdle the Line Extra, where we'll talk with 32 passionate UK-based NFL fans about their team's 2024 season, the 2025 off-season, and of course, who they think is going to don their team's cap and hoist their team's jersey in Green Bay, Wisconsin on the 24th of April at the 2025 NFL Draft. Expect highlights, lowlights, hot takes, and so much more. We're covering all things Dallas Cowboys today. I apologize, I stuttered, but we're carrying on rolling. The show must go on. We're talking all things Dallas Cowboys today with none other than Paul Redmond. Redmond of Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. Paul, how are you? And I'm very sorry for butchering that.
Don't worry, Flex. Don't worry about it. Yeah, all good. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate being on Hurdle the Line Extra. It's a mammoth task you've taken to speak to 32 people, but yeah, very honoured that you've asked me to come and talk about the Cowboys. And yeah, great to see you and great to be on with you as always.
Yeah, look, there's no one else we could have. There's no one else we could talk to about the Dallas Cowboys, mostly because everyone else is in hiding at the moment, but also because there's none other than the Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover fellas and yourself that we would want on this podcast to talk about the Cowboys. So, just as a little introduction to yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Yeah, so I've been following the Cowboys. It's a long time now. I'm getting real old. I think since 2007 is when I first got into sort of American football. One of my buddies had been nudging me, trying to get me into it for a while, and I struggled with NFL and American football as a whole. It took me a couple of goes, and then I watched a Monday night football game. Stayed up late one night. It was the Eagles against the Cowboys. Yeah, in 2007 season, so you're talking September 2007. I might even be 2006. I'm just getting that old that my memories failing me. And it was a shootout on Monday night. You had Romo and Terrell Owens on one side for the Cowboys against McNabb and Deshaun Jackson on the other side for the Eagles. And it was just long bomb after long bomb. It's famous for being the game, if you remember, where Deshaun Jackson dropped the ball before crossing the end,
Yes.
yeah, before crossing the line, the end zone. And Eagles run it in a play later, so it doesn't cost them. But it's famous for that kind of boneheaded play. And then yeah, I just ended up following the Cowboys from there. I think the one game was like 42-35. It was like a
Yeah.
ridiculous high scoring game. And I was like, this is what it's going to be like every week. It
Yeah.
wasn't, but it's been, a hell of a ride following the Cowboys since then.
I can imagine. They're following the Cowboys, America's team, the biggest franchise across the globe in the NFL. Just it's never boring following them, is it? Never boring.
Never is, and it's very much the same like kind of my actual football team as well. We're from the same place, same city, but
Yeah.
support two different football teams. But feels very similar to that. Whereas kind of no matter how well they're doing or how poorly they're doing, they more often than not tend to be the top news story,
Yeah, yeah.
regardless of what's going on. So yeah, very much the case with the Cowboys. I feel like it's kind of maybe starting to slip now. I think people are just kind of getting about just had enough of the Dallas Cowboys and hearing
Yeah.
about kind of yeah, what's going on with Jerry Jones, ownership and things like that. I think people are finally getting sick of it, which could be a good thing for us.
Could be. Yeah, could be. Hopefully, well, it's when you stop becoming the butt of the joke with Jerry Jones. I think that's when it starts to become a good thing. Um, so let's just get straight into the chunk of it. Give us what were your thoughts on the 2024 season overall for the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, it was, of course, a rough season, kind of coming off the back of 3 years in a row, winning 12 games, sort of consistently being in the playoffs. Yeah, I think I'd sum it up as they got what they deserved, the Dallas Cowboys in 2024. I think there's this arrogance around the Cowboys that they think they are a lot better than they are. And I should say we, because obviously I did support the Cowboys. I think it's just this thing, especially in the ownership. And I'm, not the only one that's extremely critical of how the team is ran. But there's an arrogance that they feel they were a lot better than they were and didn't address any of the shortcomings that stopped them going on in the playoffs
Yeah.
in those 3 years where they went 12-5. Famously, Jerry Jones said in the start of last offseason in 2024 that we're going all in.
Yeah.
And then they proceeded to do nothing in free agency. So they lost 8 or 9 starters from the 2023 team, lost them in free agency, and didn't replace them. Sadie replacing. They brought in Eric Kendricks and Ezekiel Elliott. And while
Yeah.
Kendricks was good as a veteran linebacker, that didn't plug up the 8 or 9 gaps that kind of had um, become in the roster because of what they
Yeah.
lost in free agency. So they got what they deserved. They didn't get better. They took backwards steps. While everybody, especially or most teams in the division, got better. The Eagles did, the Commanders did, the Giants are the Giants. But yeah, they just didn't respond to what others in the conference were doing. So got what they deserved. They got ran all over consistently, especially early in the season. Biggest, huge area of weakness. And they couldn't run the ball. So if you can't do those two things in the NFL, stop the run and run the ball,
Yeah.
it's going to be very, very hard for you to succeed.
Yeah. And look, I said I wasn't going to bring it up. I'm going to bring it up, but I'm not. It's not as a rubbing. It's more just as a look. Nothing epitomizes that poor start to the season than you couple of blowouts early on. The Saints in week 2. Obviously, you've got the Lions in week 6, and then you've got. Well, obviously towards the end, you got blown out again by the Eagles. The Texans wasn't close. The Eagles again wasn't close. There were just a lot of. You don't expect these things to happen to the Cowboys. And you look at the 2023 season, didn't lose a game at home. Cowboys famous for rarely ever, if ever, losing at AT&T, and then just seem to not be able to win at home this year. Um, the the joke being early on, the joke being at the end of the season that at one point Jake Paul had more wins at AT&T Stadium than the Dallas Cowboys that year.
Yeah,
Um,
Jake Paul had won his fight against Mike Tyson before we won a home game, which was yeah, crazy.
yeah, you had the whole debacle over the curtains at AT&T Stadium. It was just obviously not a great year for you overall, but if you could take, obviously, I'm gathering by the sounds of it, there are plenty of negatives that I think you can take from it. If you could take a positive and a single negative, on a single positive, sorry, what would they be out of the season?
It's tough. So try and start with the positive because it's tough because even the positives have ended up becoming negative. So probably the bit I enjoyed most of during last season was seeing Demarion Overshawn, the linebacker,
Yeah,
in his second year, and he started off the season and played fantastically well, kind of all the way up through till I think it was late November, maybe early December, where he then got another horrific injury. But he was incredible. He missed his entire rookie year with a bad ACL injury. And then yeah, came back and sort of showed what a player he could be in the NFL through
yeah,
kind of yeah weeks 1 through to 12, 13, whichever it was when he got hurt again, and then somehow suffered an even worse knee injury than he'd done previously. So it's a shame they're probably going to miss Overshawn for the vast majority of 2025. Hopefully, he can come back and get to that same level. There just seems
yeah,
to be a bit of a curse with Cowboys linebackers, like talented Cowboys linebackers that just can't stay healthy and contribute. But he was incredible, I thought, as a kind of sideline to sideline. He was really good against the run. He's probably one of the only few people in the Cowboys defense that was good against the run last year, and
yeah,
also made plays in the passing game as well. I think sort of his highlight came on Thanksgiving against the Giants. He sort of he sack stripped, recovered, took it to the house. Or maybe it was tipped to pass, caught it, recovered it. Yeah, took it to the house. So yeah, he had a great year, but again, shame it was struggling for injury, and then probably Rico Dowdle as well. When they actually let him run the ball, he
yeah.
was awesome, and now they've let him walk out the door.
Um, with that in mind, if you could put a grade on the season, A to F, pluses and minuses are allowed. Can you put what would you grade the season as?
I think it's got to be a because again because of the expectation that comes with the Dallas Cowboys, and some of the players have. I think it has to be an F, like which is crazy. They won. I think they were 7-10. They're
Yeah,
12th pick in the draft, so it wasn't a disaster of a year if you look at kind of teams that won 2 or 3 games. But yeah, I think for with the what you've got there in terms of key players in Parsons, in Lamb, in Prescott,
yeah,
I think you should be looking to win 9, 10 games, be competitive in terms of regardless of what's going on around you, find a way to compete to be in the playoffs. Nobody's got a God-given right to be there,
yeah,
and you've got to earn it on the field. But yeah, I think he was a big, big disappointment, especially again coming off the 3 years of winning 12 games.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I would generally agree with you and um understand exactly where you're coming from, as I'm sure most people do. Um, if looking into sorry, actually, no, looking into we're a couple of weeks now past the turn of the NFL calendar year. Um, where I don't know, are we in the NFL period still yet? Whether when we can say Happy New Year, or is that past?
Think so.
Um,
A couple of weeks, it's all right.
yeah. So well, obviously, it always happens the couple of days before when the tampering period is allowed, um, and then the couple of days after or the week after, there's just a lot of things that kind of they just happen. You blockbuster trades, you blockbuster contracts, and when certain players get paid by a team, other players then get paid, and then that so and so gets paid. We saw the non-QB record get broken 3 times in the space of a week, which was crazy. We're a couple of weeks out of that. A lot of what's going to happen now is going to be died down. The players that are left. There is one particular person I want to ask you about in this in a minute. But what's been your thoughts so far on the Cowboys in free agency and re-signing players in trades, etc.?
Yeah, so I think this some I don't know if credit's the right word, but we used to seeing the Cowboys do nothing in this kind of, especially the early part of free agency. I
Yeah,
think what they opened themselves and gave themselves the opportunity, I think, to make some bigger moves. They haven't done that, which I find quite bizarre. They freed up a lot of cap space in restructuring Dak and Dak Prescott and restructuring CD Lamb.
yeah,
Gave them an extra 50 odd million dollars. I think it was $56 million in cap space. You can't take that with you. You have to use it.
yeah,
And they've not really done that. So I was a bit confused. I had some initial optimism. They're going to make a couple of, not splash moves, because that's not the style. It's been 10 years plus since the Cowboys made splash moves in free agency,
yeah,
but go get some real pieces that could help you. And they just didn't do it, but they were active. So I suppose I've been critical of the front office for not being active at all. I suppose my criticisms of now are just like, I don't understand the moves that they're making, but at
yeah,
least I have made some moves. So you can't have it all, and you can't whinge all the time, I
yeah,
guess. So they have made some moves. I think they re-signed Osa Odigizua, which I think was huge.
yes,
So he had a particular breakout 2023, a slow start to last year, but finished the year strong. He was arguably one of the probably top D line options available that could have become available in free agency. That interior of the defensive line is huge for the Cowboys.
yeah,
It's already weak. You can't let your best player then walk. And I think they got a good deal done for him. They've, been guilty of overpaying for players, the Cowboys, by waiting and waiting and waiting to make deals. But I think they got also Odigizua 4 years, 80 million. So
yeah. 4 years, 80.
yeah. So for what you get and how important that position is, I think that represents real good value.
Yeah,
Um, and then after that, it was just a bit chaotic. So they re-signed some important guys. Devontae Turpin needs to be a bigger part of that offense next year, and huge in the return game. CJ Goodwin, big special teams player for the Cowboys. Marquise Bell came back, which was good.
yes,
Again, he's been a real solid position. He's been asked to play linebacker at times, but predominantly plays safety. That was a very team-friendly deal. I think that was 3 for $12 million. So yeah, solid there. And then they just went and hoovered up anybody who's been kind of a top one or two, first round or second round pick for a team that's been a bust, and just went
yeah,
and traded for them all. Which is, they started with Trey Lance last year, Jonathan Bingo from the Panthers mid-season, and then
yeah,
we've signed. I suppose Peyton Turner didn't get traded, but he was a Saints first round bust. They do need help on the line, but the
yeah,
Saints gave up on him. Kyer Elam, who just got picked on by the Chiefs in the NFC Championship game. That seems to be the only reason anybody remembers him. Yeah, so it just feels like they're in that run of, can we do something with these players who were highly touted and have a lot of value in them from a
yeah,
previous draft perspective? And we must have rated highly as well. Can we go and rescue them or rehabilitate them?
yeah.
Uh,
One of the big ones as well that I saw was Javonte Williams from the Broncos. Um, I don't know. One of the big questions has been around Dallas Cowboys and running backs, and that's been one of the present as one of the big ones. You've also got Miles Sanders as well, which was I think was a brilliant, brilliant bring in with Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams a couple of years ago, I think it was no, it wasn't Javonte Williams. I'm not gonna. I'll walk away from this conversation now, in order to not make myself look daft. But you have brought in a few players, like you said. You've got like Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams, Robert Jones, in off the Dolphins, Dante Fowler from the Commanders, Solomon Thomas from the Jets, Peyton Turner, and Jack Sanborn, a couple of which obviously you've mentioned already. Um, and when you say about Marquise Bell, it was even more team friendly than you thought. It's 3 years, 9 million.
Three for
Um,
nine. Yeah.
so even more team friendly, which is great to see. About the players that you've seen go out the door, though, obviously you've seen Cooper Rush leave, which I'm sure you're absolutely heartbroken over, and Trey Lance.
You know what with Cooper Rush, right? Whenever he's been asked to step in, because what again, it's whenever Dak Prescott's been injured,
Yeah,
he's been brilliant. He's been so reliable. And you know what? What's real hard to do as a backup quarterback in the NFL? Win games. And Cooper Rush has a career winning record. He's obviously over in Baltimore now, which is interesting just how that works. That if Lamar had to go out for any reason, you definitely
yeah.
can't run the same type of offense. But yeah, Cooper Rush, as backup quarterbacks go, did a fantastic job in Dallas because yeah, when he's asked to come in, he delivered. Very rarely turned the ball over, and he found a way to win a lot of games.
Um, I do correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a gentleman I met in Dublin last year. I'd known him for a little while through podcasty stuff, but I met him in Dublin last year in a little bar in Ireland. He was wearing a Central Michigan something. Cooper Rush is a Central Michigan boy as well, so there's always that for you. Brandon Cooks, obviously out the door. Zach Martin, Demarcus Lawrence, Eric Kendricks, and the GOAT himself, Amani Oruwariye. Obviously one of the worst ones that I've ever seen leave the Lions doors. So I can't imagine how you must feel about
Yeah.
that one as well.
And there's a lot of loss there. I think there's some probably key ones I think for me. So a lot you knew were going to happen. Letting Rico Dowdle go, I think, was criminal. Like he showed what he could do, and now he's signing at the Panthers for similar money to what Javonte Williams is getting.
Yeah,
And that one stings a little bit because they just didn't give Dowdle the opportunity earlier in the season. Persisted with Ezekiel Elliott, who was just a tank at this point, just like he can barely move. And then yeah, but when Dowdle got the ball in the second half of the season, it was fantastic. He produced, and as that old line got a little bit settled towards the end of the year, you could rely on Rico Dowdle. So he's going to go back up Chuba Hubbard now in
yeah,
Carolina. Jordan Lewis was probably the other one that I was just like that. So I feel that's a massive mistake. I think it's a 10-year vet, I think, at this point. I think he's played 10 full years in the NFL. That slot corner
yeah,
role or nickel corner role is such a difficult one to play, I think, in the NFL. And he's just so solid and consistent. We've got Bland and Diggs on the outside. They've had their problems with injury, but I think Jordan Lewis was just a leader on that defense. And yeah, he's got some good money to go to Jacksonville, so fair play. You can't begrudge him, but I think he's one we're massively going to miss. I felt that was one where they created that cap space, so why not get the job done and
yeah,
re-sign Jordan Lewis? Yeah, that was a sort of big one for me. And Chauncey Goldston's ended up at the Giants, and I think he's another one where you're struggling on that defensive line as it is. You shouldn't really be letting your most talented players. And I always felt there was more to come from Goldston, and he didn't quite maybe fulfill his potential. But he's kind of 3 or 4 years in, and you think he might kind of take the next step.
yeah,
But he's another one you need to replace now because you've got another hole on your defensive line.
yeah. With all that in mind, with all the players that have come in and all the players that have gone, what would you say right now, going into April, because we're only a few days away from April itself as of the point of recording this, it less than a month to go until the draft. We're getting into the thick of it. It's about to start. Real draft prep is going to start kicking in for all of us now. But it's been going on for the NFL teams for a while. What is your biggest position of need right now? Do you think?
So the biggest position of need, I still think for the Cowboys, and we've touched on that already, is the interior of the defensive line. I still think they need more. So, not to slight, obviously, I know you're obviously a big University of Michigan fan, Michigan Wolverines fan, but Mazzie Smith's been a disaster.
Yeah,
Yeah, we took him in the first round in 2023. the idea would be that he could maybe help plug up that middle of the defensive line. He's not good enough. I don't think he's going to be around for too much longer. So I think the interior of the defensive line is where we need to go. And there's another Michigan man who could, would be great for that, but he's going to go well before the Cowboys come on the clock. I think
Yeah.
in Mason Graham. So yeah, the interior defense line, I just think they're not going to be able to do it. I think they're going to need to do it second, third round onwards, because I think where they are at 12, unless maybe they trade back,
Yeah.
you're going to potentially be reaching for somebody
Yeah.
at that point. So yeah, it might be one you need to do in find some value a bit later on in the draft to plug that, and potentially look at getting some vets in as people get cut and things like that in training camp. But yeah, I think the interior of the defensive line is the biggest need still for me. Need to get tougher in those trenches. Need to be able to stop the run.
Yeah. So just before we do move on, there was one question I did want to ask a minute ago, and I totally forgot going into it because obviously it's not a written down one. Defining the 2025 season even with the payday that Max Crosby got, then the payday that Miles Garrett got. Just how much is Micah Parsons licking his lips and telling his accountant to just hang on a minute?
Yeah, I think he said. I think we'll see that record go again, or we'll see that highest non-quarterback number go again with Parsons. He's come out and said though that he's willing. Like if he got 40, he'd be happy. So if he got a deal that got him to 40 million a year, he'd be more than happy with, which would help out the Cowboys a bit. But again, victims of not being proactive. Again, like we've seen it so many times with CD. It was with CD Lamb last year and Dak as well. The first
Yeah.
time with Dak, they just wait and wait and wait, and then you've just got to pay the premium because your hands become tied that you have to get these guys signed. So, um, yeah, Parsons is going to get his payday, and you know what? I think he's incredibly talented player. I want to see more from Micah Parsons though. Greedy. I don't think he's at that level of a Miles Garrett, a TJ Watt, and Aiden Hutchinson. To shout out, obviously, Hutch from the Lions. I think those guys are the tip top. Put Crosby in there, maybe Nick Bosa as well. I think Parsons is the next level down. I think he took a bit of a backward step last year, which again might seem harsh given he was a big bright spot on that Cowboys
Yeah.
defense. But I think he took a bit of a step backwards, and I need to see him push on. And especially if he's going to get paid now, he needs to start producing and get into those late teens sack numbers and being a bit more of a leader. They had him and Demarcus Lawrence had a bit of a tiff. I don't know if you saw that on X or Twitter or whatever you choose to call it. So that indicate maybe all wasn't right in that room through the
Yeah.
last 12 months. So yeah.
Um, you might have to wait until the Lions version of this comes out, obviously. But I'll give I fully appreciate the shout out to Aiden Hutchinson there, but I won't put him in that bracket yet. Not quite. Um, but you can wait till the Lions one to find out why, because obviously I will be covering defensive end in that episode. Um, not to make this about the Lions or Aiden Hutchinson this episode. So with that in mind, with your in defensive interior being the position of need that you think you need to tackle the most, who do you think you would say other than Mason Graham? Obviously, because Cowboys picking at 12, the likelihood is I think Mason Graham will go in the top five.
Yeah.
Definitely isn't making it, definitely not even getting close to the top outside that 10. Um, who are you looking at? And if at that 12 pick, if you're looking at potentially taking maybe your D tackle a little bit further behind in the second, third round where you can probably get better value than at that 12 pick, who are you looking to take in the first round?
Yeah, looking at kind of playing through kind of how those maybe first 11 picks will go, I think Dallas might just be in a position might the roster isn't in a position to take best player available, but I think they'll take who they see being the best player available being on the board. And I'm not seeing his name this high in a lot of mock drafts or anything like that. But I think the Cowboys might end up taking a corner, and it could be the first corner off the board. Um, as well, just the way the way it's going to fall ahead of you. You'd expect the two quarterbacks to go. Hunter will go, Mason Graham will go,
Yeah.
Genty will be gone, and then you're looking O-line. Some teams ahead of him have big O-line needs, so I don't think they're going to get a shot at one of the top two or three O-linemen or tackles, which is also a big need for the Cowboys. So I think they're going to be in a position maybe where they stock the secondary just because that's the best player available if they don't trade down from 12. And a name I think that seems to fit, Jahdae Barron from Texas,
Yeah.
seems to fit. He has the flexibility to play safety, to play nickel corner or slot corner, however you choose to call it, and can play wide. He did all those three things for Texas. Cowboys have had big injury issues with Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland the last two seasons, just like Jordan Lewis walk, because as we sort of just discussed. So I think actually getting somebody in there to support the secondary at that point, if you're going to pick at 12, even though it's not a huge need, would be a big benefit
Yeah.
to that defense. And like I said, I think if you get to 12 and he's still on the board, he's likely going to be the best player available at that point.
Yeah. Oh, would definitely agree. I will say this though, as far as corners go, there's a good likelihood that Jahdae, well, at 12, no corners have gone off the board. Jahdae Barron, you'll have your pick of all of them. Jahdae Barron, you can not go wrong. But dare I say it, you can't go wrong with Will Johnson either. I really do. All biases aside, I think Will Johnson's going to be an excellent corner in the NFL. He's got everything he needs for it. But this is the $1 million question. I think we're going to learn a lot about you in all of history. Defensive tackle. If you could draft and take one player in history for the Cowboys at defensive tackle, who would it be?
So one's one, and they'd be a great addition out. I suppose there's two that are tough to decide because I suppose there's a slight difference to them. But I would take a man that's only just recently retired, won a Super Bowl very recently, only a couple of years ago. Aaron Donald, I would take. So it's Aaron Donald or Warren Sapp, I guess, but I'll
Yeah.
take Aaron Donald. I think if you gave me Aaron Donald on that D line now, that would be huge help. It'd be a huge help to anybody, right? But it'd
Yeah.
be a huge
Well,
help
yeah.
to the Dallas Cowboys right now. Yeah, just a phenomenal sort of talent, just a game record from the inside. And then, pairing with Parsons, Donald on the inside, Parsons on the outside. I think that could be a very fruitful partnership for the
Feed
Cowboys. But yeah, I'd
families.
take Aaron Donald, yeah.
What's the phrase? That part that feed families for generations. But no, you're absolutely right. Put Aaron Donald would make any, and I mean any team better in the National Football League today if he was to sign it and jump back in the league. Before we go, Paul, another big massive thank you for jumping on with us today. Tell us about Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. Where can we find you and what can we expect? Because you've got some brilliant, like the ideas and things that you guys come up with are fantastic. Tell us about what you got coming up and how we can find you and how people can listen to you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Cheers for that, Fletch. Yes, we're good teams win, great teams cover. We are a gambling orientated NFL podcast. So that's our niche. We do cover everything else, your news, reviews, previews, daft stuff in the off season as well, and sometimes even non-football related stuff. But our main focus or our niche, I suppose, is gambling. So if you fancy a flutter, interested in that side of things, come check us out. We're available on Spotify. We're now available finally on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Overcast. We've learned finally how to do all that stuff. So wherever you get your podcast from, you can listen to Good Teams and Great Teams Cover. You can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, X, Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok at GTW_GTC. And we've always got stuff going off. So we are in the middle of prepping our fans draft at the minute. So we've got 32 representatives, including your good self, Fletch, repping their teams to do a first round mock draft for the 2025 NFL draft that we are curating, I suppose, putting together at the minute. And we've got an NFL Mastermind competition coming up. Yeah, which Plex is also going to be taking part in, which is
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
So we are just straight up ripping off the TV show. So same format, we've got specialist subjects. We'll be recording that over the next few weeks and getting that out after the draft. And we've just started our NFL Academy series as well. So lifting the lid on everything that's going on up at the NFL Academy in Loughborough, up or down, depending where in the UK you are. Talking to some of the players, some of the coaches, getting an insight into kind of what goes on there, and yeah, just giving it a shout out a little bit more. It's becoming a quite the pipeline for getting players into the game in America, so
Yeah.
UK and European players out to colleges in America who can then hopefully make that next step to the NFL. But yeah, we're getting some interviews on that as well, which has been cool.
That's amazing. And it's can't shout out people like yourselves enough who do so much within the space of all of us. It's absolutely brilliant to see. And can I just say that I fell in love with you guys last year for the Greg's draft. Just for the Greg's draft alone, that was brilliant. Um, and saying that, yes, my number one complaint to Paul a few months ago when it was during the Greg's draft saga thing that you're doing, and I was like, you need to be on Apple Podcasts because I don't. I'm trying to avoid Spotify. I need you on Apple Podcasts. Um, so they listened. They're on Apple Podcasts. You are in my rotation every week and all that sort of stuff. It's great to be sat in work listening to podcasts, and then I got Paul and Byron and Joe getting me through the day, which is always lovely. So thank you for that. Yeah, you've supported my mental health for the last few weeks in work. It's been brilliant to have you. But go check them out. All the links to all of their stuff will be in the description and bio of the episode. So if you're on YouTube, well, it's this will be exclusively on YouTube. So it'll be right down there, right there in the description, where to follow them on socials, how to get on there, how to get to their podcast, and all of that stuff. And we'll obviously link to the YouTube channel as well. One more massive, massive thank you, and we cannot wait for the Good Teams Win Great Teams cover your revision song contest. It's gonna be epic and I'm not representing anyone on that one.
Oh, come on, Fletch.